Hello everyone, I'm Rishi Persad and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Obviously looking forward to building up to the Cheltenham Festival come the middle of March, but there's a lot to look back on from the trials for, of course, the festival that took place at HQ last weekend, and we're also building up to the Dublin Racing Festival. It is a particular pleasure to welcome to my right former Gold Cup winning jockey, I think it's a year now retired, Bryan Cooper.
A year in March, yeah.
A year in March. Still going strong. No signs of retirement for Steve Ryder after his winter break. He's back, ready to go. But Bryan, let's start with you and how life is out of the saddle. You've had 12 months now to get used to a different way of living. How's that going?
See what the real world is like. For example, I was walking off the tube today and I was like, God, I was so far away from this lifestyle for all my life, you know. But no, it has been different. It's been kind of a real change around. I'm probably having to work harder than what I did as a jockey. But no, really enjoying it, keeping myself busy, have a good routine going kind of with the bloodstock side of things. I help my dad out a little bit at home when things are quiet, and then the odd media gig here and there, so enjoying it and no regrets.
Recently did a day for Racing TV, is that right?
Yeah.
Made your debut.
Did down the Royal last Tuesday with Johnny Ward, which was great fun. Really enjoyed that, so no, we'll hopefully a few more to come.
Okay, and Steve, what about you? How was the Christmas, New Year spell for you? Profitable?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, my main one was Monty Star running between Christmas and New Year, obviously. Put up on the first show of this series at 50 to 1 for the Brown Advisory Series. Yeah,
still alive.
Still hoping. And yeah, they've done me a favour with only entering him in the Brown Advisory, so I haven't got the sweat that you might go to the National Hunt Chase that we normally have at this time of the year. Yeah, January could have started a bit better tipping wise, but yeah, glad to be back on the show, and you can give me a few steers and then I'll start getting back into profit.
Well, in fairness, I thought of you when I was at Warwick and Broadway Boy ran.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, has this impacted our Broadway Boy Cheltenham hopes? Because I still think he should go for the National Hunt Chase, as you know. I don't know, what did you make of that run?
Yeah, it's yeah, it might mean that they kind of rethink of where they're going to go, because I think they were pretty set on Brown Advisory, but having been beaten there, yeah, they may well go up to the next stage, which I can tell you're smiling at, looking at me.
Fingers crossed. Bryan, as you see, we've often talked about horses that we want to back for the period coming up. So what we do traditionally is to ask our guest to give us one horse that we haven't seen recently or something a little bit out of left field to follow.
Yeah, it's going to be Willie's horse in the spring juvenile. That was second to Sergino.
Salvatore Mundi.
Yeah,
okay.
I just think if he shows up, there could be something there to follow. You know, that form. I watched back the race last night, and if I was to be critical, Sergino got a lot better ride than maybe Salvatore Z, and I just thought maybe Willie getting his hands on him now, you'd imagine with the way he's improved a lot of these other French horses he's got, he could be very exciting. So I'm going to stick with him, and hopefully he shows up and he's shown the right size at home.
Well, if he is as good as Sergino, or if not perhaps better, as you may suggest, I think Sergino got a rating of 145 following that win at the weekend. So that's quite a hefty one to look out for. So Salvatore Mundi for Bryan. Well, that sets up quite nicely for us to chat about our first segment, and that is Racing Recap. And so to Cheltenham we go from Trials Day, and we'll start with the Clarence House Chase if we can, Bryan. Obviously, the big talking point was Jonbon. So I want to ask you from a rider's perspective, obviously Elixir De Nutz won, etc. That we'll come to that in a minute. What did you make of Jonbon from start to finish?
It was obviously clear from my point of view, he was never happy after jumping the third fence. Like I looked at his jumping from last year and it was exceptional. Like Sandown, he put in a spectacular performance of jumping. Now maybe it was the ground. Maybe the ground was quite sticky and tacky, and maybe he was getting stuck in it. But he never looked comfortable for me. For a 2-miler, like they need to be getting lengths at jumps, where he was coming out a length and a half behind every time, and for him to still be involved turning into the straight, like after his mistake at the fourth last, and then still only be beaten a neck or whatever it was, like the engine is there, but there clearly was something, an issue. Nicky trotted him up on the Sunday morning. They showed that video on Twitter, and he said he was sound. So clearly, I think it was the ground. He got stuck in it, and maybe he is a real better ground type of horse.
What did you think about Jonbon's performance? I mean, do you agree that it was probably down to the ground or anything else? Just an off-day jumping?
Yeah, I'm never going to be critical of James Byrne. I think he's a brilliant jockey, but we've made the point on this show a few times that I think Nico de Boinville is brilliant on him because he just makes his mind up coming into the fences. Whereas James Bowen, Aidan Coleman are a bit quieter riders going into fences and lets the horse decide. Where Jonbon's best performances, I think, have been when his mind's been made up. I'd share the same opinion as Bryan that it was a brilliant performance to get back into the race. At the same time, I thought the ride on Elixir De Nutz was fantastic. Freddie Gingell, I mean, in fairness to the horse, he made a mistake at the fence after Jonbon did. It would have been very easy for a young rider to kind of get carried away and go for home too early there, but he kept a bit up. Jonbon, I suppose, if he'd have winged the last, he probably would have gone on and won. But yeah, Freddie Gingell kind of kept a bit up his sleeve, went for him after the last and got up to provide him and Joe Tizzard with the first Grade 1 win. I thought it was fabulous.
It was. What did you make of Freddie Gingell's ride?
Confident, you know. He obviously has a lot of trust in the horse, you know, and they get on really well. And to go out in a Grade 1 like that with that confidence, and like he rode him as if he was the best horse in the race, and he didn't. Jonbon, well, he wasn't worried about Jonbon, you know. He put him to a jumping test, and he's got a bright future, you know. Like he's in with Paul Nicholls as well, like, so I think he's doing, you know, when you're right, I suppose he's riding out with Harry Cobden and all these riders as well, so he's picking up bits and pieces, and he's not going around with his eyes closed, that's for sure. No,
for sure. El Fabiolo is 1-2 with Bet365 for the Champion Chase. And by the way, non-runner, no bet, Bet365 for all races of the Cheltenham Festival. But also, you're reminding me that earlier today, Steve, the other market is also open if you want to get involved in the non-runner, no bet. Yeah,
so for example, he's 1-2 at the minute for the Champion Chase, or 4-9, no runner, no bet. So for a horse like El Fabiolo, who's only going one place, he's going to go to the Champion Chase, isn't he? So you'd back him anti-post and take your risk. Well, I would personally. Obviously, it's up to what you obviously then want to do at that time. We'll come into it a few kind of races time around Lossiemouth. If you think she has more than one option, which I don't, then you might want to take that non-runner no bet concession. But yeah, El Fabiolo is currently obviously a short price for the Champion Chase. We'll see what will happen in the Dublin Chase. But at the same time, the Champion Chase is a race that we have seen shocks at in the past. I mean, what Duvan was beaten at 2-9, I think. Definitely just saw a similar sort of price. So yeah, don't get too carried away.
He's very short, I think, you know.
Okay. So would you take him on?
I'm not impressed with his jumping. Like he's for 2 mile, there's no mistake. You can't make mistakes in 2 mile Champion Chase. You can get away with it when you go up and trip, but like it's okay at novice level. I found as a rider, you will get away with it, but Leopardstown is going to be a different kettle of fish now, and like he got away with 1 or 2 in Cork, but Leopardstown is going to test him, and I'm going to sit on the fence for a little while. Like the engine is there, but jumping is clearly a little bit of an issue, you know. And if come Cheltenham, if ground turns up, it's going to be ground on the better side. I think Jonbon will get a lot closer than what he did maybe at Cheltenham.
Okay, I mean, we're talking about the front 2 in the market for the Champion Chase, both having the engine, no doubt, but both with a flaw in the jumping. Yeah. Is there something else lurking that you're going to back, or are you just going to sit and wait? Or is this one of those, I wouldn't really want to take them on?
I want to see what happens with Fernie Hollow. I think he's fascinating because, I mean, he's 25s for the Dublin Chase. So on all accounts, you probably don't think that he's either going to head there or head to Cheltenham afterwards. But you've got to think what he's done. He's a champion bumper winner, beat Bob Ollinger when he was on form in a novice hurdle, won his 2 chases. Like, he is a serious horse, and yeah, he's a wild price. So if they could get him back.
Yeah, and I'd say, knowing Willie, well, just guessing from being part of their team, he'll probably aim for 1 day and 1 day only, and that's Cheltenham if he can get him there, because clearly he only won on that, or 2 years ago, and you know, if he gets him there, Willie's been known to have these horses off for a very long time and arrive onto the festival, but it'll be a massive ask. Like, he's only 2 runs over fences as well, so but he has a massive engine, and he's 9 now, I think, as well, so he is pushing on, but it might not just be a 2-horse race.
I think that's the fair way to look at it, not a 2-horse race, because of the frailties, perhaps, of the jumping regarding El Fabiolo and Jonbon. The Cotswold Chase, less frailty in the jumping all round, but keeping the Mullins theme going. Capodanno, I mean, I suppose it's more an indictment on the British chasers that he does what he does, wins comfortably enough, for a Galopin de Champ pointer.
Yeah, I mean, it looked an open race according to the betting. Capodanno, I know, shortened a bit, obviously coming into the race. Looking back at his form, he was justified to do what he did. He obviously won that 3-mile Grade 1 at Punchestown. And then last year, they just said he wasn't right for his couple of runs. You can just discount those. I think because he went off 80-1, finished third behind Galopin de Champ, some people kind of discarded that form. But he finished, what, a neck behind Jerry Colombe? Like, that was a serious run. So he was well entitled to do what he did. I thought Paul Tanner gave him a great ride, patient, didn't really make a mistake at all. Yeah, it just kind of reinforces the fact of Willie's dominance with Galopin de Champ based on that. I thought it was good to see the English challengers run well. The real Wacker was back to somewhere near what he'd shown, because I was quite concerned with him for his couple of runs this year. I thought Stay Away Faye ran a good race as a Brown Advisory trial. He wouldn't be suited to going back down in trip on the other course, though. So even though I think he's 13-2 with Bet365 for the Brown Advisory, I would be a bit worried about him for win purposes. He's the sort of horse that you think will happen, kind of finish third or fourth, but will probably be vulnerable win-wise. Ahoyson Europe, it was great to see him back jumping, settled under Stephen Mulqueen. Obviously, it was really unlucky what happened, obviously, with the stirrup there. And then, obviously, there was a sad post-trip with That's All Right, Gino, for Jamie Snowden as well.
Yeah, we send our very best wishes to the Jamie Snowden team after losing That's All Right, Gino. Just looking at the race as a whole, what can you take out of it for the future?
I wasn't overly strong on the English form from last year. The real Wacker, I'm not so sure that the last year's Brown Advisory was a very strong contest. Like Jerry Colombe, everyone kind of got hyped about him when he won the J and Wine up the north. But to me, he got found out in Leopardstown and just showed how far behind maybe they were. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my opinion. And I felt if any of these lined up in the Gold Cup, they might finish fourth or fifth. They're not going to get close enough. Capodanno showed a bit of pace. Paul rode him for pace. He set off the pace a bit, and he might be more of a Ryder Chase type of a horse. But I suppose like Stay Away Fade, to me, it was a good performance as a novice, but he looks to me more of a horse for a 4-miler. He just doesn't travel. Like Harry Cobden was squeezing and squeezing from the very minute they turned on the back the second time, and you won't get away in that in the Brown Advisory. So to me, I think he'd be tailor-made for the 4-miler. Doesn't look like he's going to go that way. But that was the only one, a positive I could take out of it as of a novice taking on the older horses, because it's not easy. And he jumped well, but he'll have to be a lot sharper to be really involved in Cheltenham. Yeah,
I thought he was interesting because I think Stay Away Faye, just looking at the way Paul Nicholls has campaigned a few of his good horses recently, he's left them with a bit of work to do before Cheltenham. So they run in their prep with a little bit left to go. And just the way he raced, I thought there was an element of it. I know he is probably...
Yeah, the engine is there, but I'd like to see him travel better in the middle part of his races. Like, I could see at one stage Harry was looking over at Paul when he arrived up on his outside down the back straight, as if he didn't want him there. Harry wanted that pocket on the outside to shove him up along, and Paul half shoved him in a bit, which didn't suit him, and which was great riding by Paul, I thought. But no, I felt he needs to travel a little bit sharper. Now maybe that'll bring him on again. It was only his third start over fences, but his jumping is great. But just to me, he needs to be a little bit sharper if he's going to be really involved.
Okay, let's talk about the International Hurdle, which provided one of the most impressive winners of the weekend, one of the most impressive winners of the week. And Lossiemouth is now 4-6 with Bet365 for the Mares Hurdle. How good was she? Is she going to run in the right race? What race is she going to run in at the festival?
She's definitely going to run in the Mares. Like, I think it is the right thing to do. It wouldn't be Willie. To me, always does what's right for the horses and not what the public thinks is right, and that's probably why he's had the winners he's had. She's a very strong traveller. She got lit up last year in the Triumph, but I thought they're getting to know each other a bit better, and what she did from the back of the last was incredible. Like, first start of the year, it's clear it is very hard for 4-year-olds turning 5 on their second season, and especially fillies as well. I found that there was a mare, Petit Parisian, Willie had a long time ago. I won a couple of Grade 1s on, and she really struggled. She won 3 Grade 1s as a juvenile, but couldn't make the step up in grades. I think Apple's Jade was one of the few who did it, but she's a proper Mares Hurdle, and then they can step up. They're going to go down the Annie Power route, I'd imagine.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you can count on your hands, or not even, you need a whole hand to count the 4-year-olds that have made the step up to 5. You mentioned Apple's Jade. Maybe Catch It would be the only other one I can immediately think of making that jump. It's a tough one. Binocular would obviously be another one.
Or Connor, I suppose, unfortunately. He put it up to Hurricane Fly twice in Leopardstown, which was
we're going to mention him a bit later on, but yeah, absolutely.
Was it Espadellen that won the champion hurdle?
Yeah.
But that was a bit of an anomaly. That was a bit of a weird race that year, wasn't it?
It's very strange.
Happened. It was fallers or something.
That
was right.
How good was Lossiemouth in your opinion, Steve? And I mean, can anything beat her in the mare's hurdle?
I don't think so. I think this was the performance of the weekend. I was blown away by her. She needed that £3, didn't she?
Perfect.
I went back and watched the Triumph of last year, and like Bryan said, she was quite keen. She got a bit lit up coming down the hill. But actually, this time, settled beautifully. I don't think she'll improve for the step up to 2.5 miles. I think she'll win the mare's hurdle despite going up in trip because she's got plenty of boot. But yeah, she'll head there. I thought it was a solid performance. It was good to see Love Envoy back to somewhere near her best. Obviously, she'll run her race in the mare's hurdle, but she won't be reversing that form. By all accounts, Lossiemouth now goes mare's hurdle, Punchestown for the Annie Power race, and then possibly France for the French champion hurdle.
Are you in agreement with Bryan that Willie's doing the right thing for the horse, and that's understandable, or does it rankle with you as much as it does one or two of us, probably more me, that the mare's hurdle still detracts from the champion hurdle?
No, I think she's running in the right race for this year. I think the change in tactics that Willie Mullins has obviously done this year with those juveniles, he's kind of learnt from the last few years with Vauban and those sort of horses that it is a tough. Run her in the mare's hurdle this year. I think you'll find out on her next 2 starts after that where she is and how good she is, and then target it the year after.
Okay.
What's not to say he won't go for the champion hurdle in Punchestown after Cheltenham?
Well, fair enough.
It's just something that crossed my mind. I know they said
no doubt.
When they said champion hurdle, and then it was France, but maybe it could be Punchestown. You wouldn't know if she went and bolted up in Cheltenham. Could she go back for the champion hurdle in Punchestown?
Yeah, I mean, in the old days, obviously, and that's the issue with a lot of people who go on about it, including myself. It's that having done what she did on the weekend, it's the champion hurdle, because that's the championship race. That tells who the best hurdler is. But now that, I mean, it's nothing to do with Willie Mullins, Richie, Paul Tannen. It's the programme. It's the options. We had the conversation about Honeysuckle last year.
That's right.
Okay, Honeysuckle won the mare's hurdle, but what would it have been like had she gone up against Constitution Hill in the champion hurdle? Might she have given him a race? Never know, because now we've got these options. That's the thing, but that's for another day. The Cleve hurdle, the kind of race that I enjoy seeing. A lot of old warriors. I mean, if you add up all their ages, it's nearly reaching mine. But it was an old warrior who perhaps has a slightly different profile compared to Dashel Drasher and Champ and Paisley Park. It was Noble Yeats who got the job done. And I felt he idled when he got to the front. What did you think, Steve?
I thought he was in trouble. I thought both him and Paisley Park were in trouble coming down the hill. It was kind of the race changed complexion in the last half a furlong about 3 different times. Paisley Park always hits that flat spot, and I think actually he was a bit inconvenienced by being stuck down the inside behind Dashel Drasher. I thought if he'd have got out earlier, he probably wouldn't have lost the same amount of ground than what he did. Noble Yeats, Harry Cobden was kind of pushing him along, but not really going for everything, and then stayed on well at the finish. He obviously was going to stay on well, obviously being a Grand National winner. I just thought the main thing of it was how loud the cheer was after the last. Like, what a spectacle the race was, and kind of I think Paisley Park got a better reception in the second place rather than in the winning.
They showed more on TV about Paisley Park than they did Noble Yeats as well, I found as well. He's a real people's horse, I think, isn't he now?
And also the fact that he's come so close, and all his runs this season hasn't quite got it done. It's really bugging, obviously, Tom Bellamy and Emma Lavelle, and obviously owners. But he's still got a lot of ability.
Yeah, he's clear. He loves his racing.
Yeah.
And there was 2 seasons ago, he was a little bit reluctant to line up once or twice. You don't see that anymore from him. So he's clearly waking up on the right side of bed every morning now with age.
What about Noble Yeats? It's extraordinary. I think that was only his 3rd run over hurdles. How live is his chance for the stayers? He's 10-1 with Bet365.
Yeah, it's a race I've been looking at a lot, and it's hard to weigh up the form because it's very hit and miss a bit. Like, to me, if you ask me now and put me on the spot, did I see the stairs hurdle winner? I'd say no. Yeah. I think Teahopu maybe has a little shade more class on what we've seen this season. I think he's improved a little bit more, but does it turn into a dire stayers race? Then they bring in the likes of Noble Lates and Paisley Park. So it's a funny one, you know. I'm kind of picking holes everywhere in it as I can. Like I thought Dasher was the winner turning in because he was pricking his ears and he faded out to be fourth. So I think if Teahupoo does show up, he still could think a lot of beating. He wasn't beaten that far last year, and to me, he has improved a little bit, 4 or 5 pounds that he needed from last year, and that could be good enough.
Yeah, it does appear that, you know, Teahupoo, maybe Crambo, the younger horses have the edge on the older ones. But I think Noble Yeats is an interesting addition to the pack, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be down to ground. I think the softer the ground, not that he needs it soft, but I think it will just bring his stamina into play. I think if it's soft on the day, you'll see Teahupoo supported, you'll see Noble Yeats supported. On better ground, you'll then have Irish Point supported because of that kind of less of a stamina test on the day. But yeah, it's going to be a fascinating race, and I think that's one of the main races of the festival that would be determined by the ground.
Yeah. Okay. The next performance, I think, would be up there as one of the best performances. I know you mentioned Lossiemouth, and no arguments with that. But in the Triumph Trial, Sergino put up, I think, a really impressive performance. I'm going to start with you here, Steve, on Sergino, because I think we've already had a little mention regarding Sergino from Bryan. But I'll start with you, and I want to ask you in particular to weigh up what Sergino did to Burdett Road, who pre-Christmas everyone was talking about as a potential Triumph hurdle horse, maybe even have a go at testing the waters for the champion hurdle.
Yeah, not all of us were.
Correct. You didn't. You held firm from the off, saying wait and wait and wait. There are others to come.
Yeah, and the betting couldn't really split Sergino and Burdett Road, but yeah, there was only one winner on the track, wasn't there? I mean, Sergino, he's interesting because he obviously came over from France. He won that listed race, beating Salvador Mundi. And then I don't think Nicky had really done much schooling with him before Kempton, because you're just assuming that obviously these French horses can jump blindfolded. But he kind of ballooned a few at Kempton, and you could tell that the engine was there. But God, he jumped so well in this. And if Burdett Road had made a couple of mistakes, you might go, well, he's got a chance of reversing the form. But Burdett Road probably jumped as well as he had done over hurdles so far. So it's hard to see kind of any excuse and a reason for them to reverse form. Burdett Road was a bit keen coming down the hill, kind of like Lossiemouth was in the Triumph last year. Like Harry kind of took a pull. But I mean, Sergino's engine was just absolutely fabulous. I mean, the Spring Juvenile is often the trial for the Triumph. So if you're looking at the kind of the 6-4 for the Triumph now for Sergino, I'd just give it a week. Wait for the Spring Juvenile, because there could be a similar sort of performance come out over in Ireland, and then you can then decide between the two. But yeah, I think he'll be going to Cheltenham being many people's banker of the festival. But yeah, it would just be quite interesting. I'm still going to sit on my hands for the time being.
Okay. Obviously, Bryan, you won the Triumph on R. Connor, who was outstanding, one of the best juvenile hurdlers, and it's a shame we never really got to see what he was truly capable of over hurdles. Does Sergino give you the impression that he is a top-class juvenile hurdler of the ilk that he's a banker for the festival, like R. Connor was?
I haven't seen a juvenile do what Sergino done since R. Connor. I know it was Cheltenham in February, but like, he beat a horse off the flat with savage pace, right? Like, he's a very fast horse. He's won in Royal Ascot, and he's made him look bang average to me, you know. And if that's his second start, like Nicky's known his horses do improve come March. I'm trying to think, what could he do in March? It was very impressive. Like, he doesn't look like your typical Triumph hurdle. He looks a horse that could be jumping fences next year for all we know.
He does look like,
he's got a bit of scope, you know, and there's just something about the way he leant in from the back to the last. He really stretched out, you know, had his neck out. So it is interesting. But we have to see about Salvador Mundi on.
But just correct me, they're both in the same ownership, aren't they?
Yeah.
Salvatore Mundi. So it's possible. It's still possible Salvatore Mundi could end up
supreme
in one, or I mean, Sergino.
Maybe, yeah. Well,
I mean, Sergino would be a live claim for the Supreme, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
If they wanted to go that way.
Definitely. I think he could go off favourite.
All right, who's a better Supreme candidate right now? Sergino, Jericho de Reponnet?
I'd have Sergino.
Yeah, definitely.
There you go.
It's going to be interesting. Salvador Mundi obviously is still a novice, so he finished second to Sergino. So you'd imagine he will then be campaigned Spring Juvenile, triumph if he hasn't won, and then retain his novice status for next season, and that could then be their get out of jail free card for them taking each other on.
He is exciting though, isn't he?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
all the things that Bryan says about what he looks like and what he looks like he could be, as opposed to already what he is, makes him probably one of the most exciting horses of the season.
Well, these juvenile hurdlers, like, it's quite interesting because you've got Burdett Road that was kind of a similar route to Arcona, coming off the flat. Arcona was rated in the 80s as opposed to Burdett Road, and then you've got obviously Road Apple's Jade, who was kind of more of a national hunt type.
Yeah. Well, she came from France. Well, but that's one of the races I'd love her to go in again. She's the tribe. But she justified it after. But she was different. She was tough. She was a stayer. Whereas Sergino seems to have a lot of pace. But he does everything. He doesn't look like a flat horse. He looks like a big chaser.
He doesn't look like he's going quickly.
No. But I remember during the summer, there was a lot of hype about this race in Oddschecker that the two of them had ran, and ever before they even, just as they were bought, word was out that Donnelly's were after buying the first and second. So clearly, whoever had bought them, the times were very good, and it's actually exciting now to see it come forward and the form is working out. But no, it's going to be interesting to see the declarations on Saturday and see if Salvador Mundi shows up.
Yeah, that will be a pointer to so many things, or perhaps even muddy the waters even more. Lots of obviously very good racing to look back on. I mean, I mentioned Jericho de Repenay. I mean, who would like to start with a sort of summary? Steve, do you want to kick us off with a summary of the other performances that really caught your eye in the last week?
Yeah, I'll go through a few in the UK. I'll leave some of the Irish stuff to Bryan. I loved the performance of Ginny's Destiny in that novice handicap chase at Cheltenham.
Has that all surprised you?
Yeah. He just keeps
After the
improving.
first run of the season, yes, he has surprised me, is my point.
Yeah, like Paul Nicholls afterwards even mentioned, and there's no way that they're comparing ability, but to masterminded, like how much he progressed from winning a handicap to then winning the champion chase that season. But he's really obviously then improved. It was the same race that Stage Star won last year before winning the Turners. And yeah, he'd be the kind of obvious each-way play against Gaelic Warrior, kind of anti-post wise for that. Yeah, I love these sort of front-running chasers at Cheltenham. Harry Cobden is just brilliant on them. I think he's important to him, so it's going to be interesting to see what Hermes Hélène does in the Scilly Isles at this weekend, because if he wins up that impressively and goes for the Turners, Ginny's Destiny is a second string. That would kind of concern me, because I do think Harry's important on him. Yeah. But I thought that was a serious performance. I also thought the second there was quite eye-catching. Theatre Man, staying on well. I think something stepping back up to 3 miles would suit him. Something like the Ultima is a long-term aim for him. Might be something to keep an eye on. Gidley Park obviously won the closing race, the Grade 2 novice hurdle. It didn't go completely to plan. Watching Johnny Burt, you could tell that he wanted to track Isaac de Zobo, and then Isaac de Zobo made a bad mistake at the second, and he was kind of left in front. He's this big, gross horse, still inexperienced, was kind of having a good look around, and I think that would have done him the world of good. Showed a really good attitude to battle back at the finish in order to win that. Whether they then go for the intermediate race or go for the Albert Bartlett is open to question, but he's going to be a serious horse next year when they go novice chasing. You touched on Jericho de Repenay. I mean, yeah, it was a bit disappointing, wasn't it? I know a stronger pace would probably suit him better. It was kind of turned into a bit of a dash, but yeah, you'd be a bit disappointed with that. I wouldn't be in a rush to take the 7-1 for the Supreme after that. And then there was a couple of nice mares hurdles at Doncaster. The Saturday one was over the shorter trip. I really liked the top 3 in that. Under Control, I touched on a few weeks back. I was a big fan of her. Yep. She kind of just blew out on a reappearance, but this was much better after a wind operation. I wouldn't give up on Gala Marceau. There was obviously she was so impressive over in France, over 2.5 miles. I think the step back up in trip in the mares hurdle will really suit her, and it wouldn't surprise me to see her reverse form with Ashray Diamond, who obviously won that race. Whether either can beat Lossiemouth is another question, but yeah, Gala Marceau I wouldn't give up, and she would be the one that I took out of that race. And then on the Sunday at Doncaster, there was also a mares hurdle. Marie's Rock and You Wear It Well, both Cheltenham Festival winners, fought out that finish. Marie's Rock did a characteristically high head carriage, but showed a good attitude and actually battled on well at the finish.
The second last, wasn't it?
Yeah. The runner-up, I don't probably think stayed, so the return to 2.5 miles would suit You Wear It Well, but I prefer the form of the Saturday race. With Gala Marceau than over the Sunday race.
All right. And also Dysot Enos won at Doncaster. Just strutted her stuff, didn't beat very much, but remains on course for the mares novices, and I still think should be the one to beat. I just want to mention one more in relation to what you said. The horse that finished behind Jericho de Repeno's Lump Sum.
Yeah.
One to follow. It seemed to me that the horse was, having won 2 races relatively easy, won by I think 10 lengths the first time and relatively easy the second time.
It's the first time coming into a battle.
First time, and when he was first asked, it was almost as if it was like my first day at school. Yeah. I remember I was completely lost. But then all of a sudden it dropped, probably quicker for Lump Sum than it did for me. And he picked up at the end. And I think he's definitely one to keep in mind. I'm not sure he would have beaten Jericho de Repeno anyway, but I think he's a horse that would have learned a lot from that.
An entry or something like that, maybe.
I hope they'd avoid that, the hotter races, and wait for something nice at the back end of the season. What about you, Brian? Anything else that you'd like to pick up on? A few in Ireland.
Yeah, I thought Jade Deguji was very impressive.
Yeah.
She got I think she got rated the same as Honeysuckle, 135, I think it is, a Racing Post rating or something like that, which is the same as what Honeysuckle got when she won that race in before going on to win in Cheltenham. I thought she was very impressive. She looks to have a massive engine. Embassy Gardens I thought was very good in Naas on Sunday. He looks tailor-made for the 4-miler. I'd say Patrick Mullins is rubbing his hands already, and I'd say there can't be enough fences in a circuit for him. He got lengths out of his fences. And a horse yesterday called Billy Ecker Dickey of
oh yes,
Joe Donnelly's and Willie Mullins. I thought that was an exceptional performance, because watching racing, Willie was saying all day that he didn't fancy this horse. He wasn't going to handle the ground, and he just hopes he'd run respectable. And if he did that on ground that he didn't like, I think he could actually turn into a horse, could be sneaking at the bottom level of a Supreme. Okay. He put massive distance between the second horse and third horse from the last of the line, so he's one definitely to keep an eye out on as well.
Okay. Jasmine DeVoe, did you see that bumper performance, and did it strike a chord with you? Very
impressive, but just the form of the second and third probably wasn't overly that strong, but the vibes were from Clonsutton were very good beforehand, so he's definitely up there in the pecking order for the champion bumper horses. But he just was a little bit keen and lit up for me. I know Patrick said in his interview after that he thinks he'll handle the hustle and bustle of Cheltenham, but I think it's for me was quite similar last year, and he done something similar when he got to Cheltenham, but he does have a massive engine, yeah. And
we can't close off the Irish reflections without mentioning that Monkfish was back.
He breaks my heart, that horse. He cost me about 3 or 4 grade 1s the time he was around. Latest exhibition. I was second to him, I think, 3 times, and Cheltenham and Leopardstown twice. But no, it was great, and a fantastic training performance from Willie to get him back, because he was a real people's horse, and to show that battle. And we've never mentioned, that's one that's going to be thrown into the mix if he shows up for the Stayers hurdle.
Absolutely, yeah. He's 16-1, I think, for the Stayers with Bet365. Thought that was pretty smart. Okay, unless there's any more to mention.
Just one thing around Billericay Dickey. I was really impressed with him as well, and it was obviously over 2.5 miles. That's something where you could take the no run or no bet concession with Bet365, because I think the Bear and Bingham, that it's now called, would be the obvious place for him, sort of 12-1 for that. He'd be the sort of horse that you'd want to back after one run, whether they then keep him for next year or whether they then go to the sort of festival.
Yeah, I think no one really, if they win this side of Cheltenham, they're on the box and go. He tends to bring over everything. He's not afraid to run 3 and 4 runners in these novice races, but he did say that he'd like to get another run into him beforehand. Yeah. So I was just looking. I don't think there is a whole lot between now and, say, he likes to give him 3 weeks and then give him another 3 weeks. It doesn't really fit in, but it'll be interesting to keep an eye on, because he seems to have a massive engine.
Okay, so hopefully a few names for you to bear in mind. That has been this week's Racing Recap. Now, before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor Bet365 have an ITV Racing price promise. They'll not be beaten on price on any horse for all UK and Irish races shown live on ITV Racing. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. And we have some very exciting news to share with you. We will once again be hosting our live Cheltenham Festival preview evening at the King George pub in Chiswick on the 6th of March. We'll have some top guests, obviously including Steve, but also Gavin Lynch and Willie Twiston-Davies, who, of course, is going to be joining the licence alongside his father, Nigel. They'll be part of the panel. Details on how to get hold of tickets for that will be announced very shortly. But now it's time to look ahead to the weekend, and of course the Dublin Racing Festival stands tall and proud over everything else. 2 fabulous days coming up at Leopardstown. And let's start first of all with the novices hurdle over 2 3/4 miles. And we were talking before we started the show, talking about horses that were of interest. Predator's Gold is at the top of the market. Obviously he was second to Caldwell Potter. How good a horse do you think Predator's Gold is? And
I think he's very good. He won the Land Rover Bumper and was probably went in under the limelight a little bit for the race in Leopardstown at Christmas. But he's stepping up massively in trip here after Leopardstown. But he didn't seem to stay. I know he made a mistake at the last, but he didn't hit the line for me that day to suggest going up to 2 mile 6. And one I really like, and is probably going to be one of my fancies for the weekend, is Loughlin.
Yeah.
I don't think he's done anything wrong in what he's done. He was very impressive winning his maiden hurdle in Punchestown. He went down to Limerick then at Christmas and showed a fierce, gritty, tough attitude to win. And this is a race you need to stay very well in. And I think I won't be shocked if I see Paul Townend on him at declaration stage. And it's going to be a race I'm keeping a good eye on. Obviously, Jessica Harrington has Jatara and who's stepping up to Grade 1 company. She won well in Leopardstown at Christmas as well, but that's a big step up. It is between the top 2 in the market, I do think. Yeah,
Jatara's been making hay against her own sex. Obviously, this is going to be a bigger challenge. How do you see it? Are you swayed by the sentiment behind Loughlin from Bryan?
I wasn't really interested in playing Willie Mullins bingo for this race. I thought Jatara was probably the way to go. I've been really impressed, and she's got really good Leopardstown form as well. She's a second season novice, so she's got plenty of experience. If you look back at her form last year, she finished second behind High Definition and Asteroid Diamond. So she wasn't disappointing. Obviously, last year in novice hurdles, you can forgive her reappearance effort. She jumped terribly the first 2 hurdles behind Brighter Days Ahead, but then really kind of has been impressive over the longer trips on her last 2 starts. She won by 16 lengths at Fairyhouse over 2.5 miles. She won by 6 lengths in a listed race at Punchestown, and then won that Grade 3 here by 7.5 lengths last time. This extra distance, 2 miles 6, I don't think it will inconvenience her. She won over 2.5 miles on soft and heavy ground, so she's got plenty of stamina. She's rated, 142? Should be the obvious each way alternative to me.
Okay. I'm going to ask about the Spring Juvenile Hurdle, because you mentioned that earlier on as regards to sitting on your hands, I believe was the phrase that you used with talking about Sergino for the Triumph. Stormheart bolted up at Punchestown on debut. Bunting also won really well, only start so far under rules. Salvatore Mundy's in there that you mentioned. Stormheart 6-4 with Bet365. Calaconti 3-1. Salvatore Mundy 4-1. Bunting 7s. How are you going to play this if you had to?
So I think this is probably one of the races where you can expect Willie to run lots of them. I think looking back at last year, he ran 6 out of the 8 runners. So I imagine he'll do a similar sort of thing. And some of these he has to get out, especially, for example, Margeborough, I think is a winner from France. Yeah. So really it'd be a waste if they don't then come here and obviously then lose novice status for next season. So Margeborough, I know there's been plenty of chat, won at Auteuil in April. JP McManus and Willie Mullins, he's around 14-1, so he'd be one to note. This race is one where you can keep, there's kind of normally 2 separate races. There's normally some at the back looking towards a Boodles mark, and there's normally some towards the front that are then having a look towards the Triumph. But Salvatore Mundy obviously has had his form boosted. I think he's of interest going forward. It'll be interesting to see jockey bookings when they do come out. It wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if
5 to 12 on Friday morning or Thursday morning, last minute, everyone will be hitting refresh to see who's on what.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I thought the favourite was a bit short in comparison to some of these, completely unexposed ones from France.
How do you see it?
Yeah, I think the favourite is quite short, even though I was impressed with him today. He won in Punchestown. Again, jockey bookings are going to be very interesting. I am hearing good word about Margeborough. I've just heard 1 or 2 things that he has been going quite well at home, so it is interesting if he will show up. I thought in Teloto was actually quite impressive when he won in Leopardstown on his first start. He won a maiden now, but he's 10-1 there at the minute, and he could be something that could run in a little bit above himself. But I'm not having a bet in the race, but I'm more kind of going to be just waiting to see what Paul Townend is down on, because that's going to give a massive indication, and I can imagine there'll be a big change in prices if he's down on Salvador Mundi instead of Storm Heart.
Okay, sit tight for declaration time to see what Paul Townend sits on. The next race we'll talk about is hugely interesting, and I know Marine Nationale is a horse that everyone thinks is, well, he was faultless on his debut over fences, and everyone thinks he's a shoo-in for the Arkle. But it'd be interesting to see what opposition faces him. He's 4-7 for the Irish Arkle on the weekend. Gaelic Warrior 11-4, Founder 50-92, Blood Destiny 10s, Facile Vega 10s, Il Était Temps 10s. What's going to take him on?
Again, it's like Willie's playing mind games with us. I think Gaelic Warrior will show up. I do think he'll stick to 2 miles. Just the way he jumped out in Leopardstown and was ridden forward over 2 mile 3. I can't see him now trying to restrain him over 2 mile 5 and around Leopardstown, which takes a lot of getting. I think Marine Nationale is very short. If you want to stick pins in his form, like he's beaten Facile Vega 3 lengths to 4 lengths in the Supreme. Like Facile Vega to me hasn't showed up this year at all. He's not getting home in his races, and Founder 50 was very good and showed a very good stamina to win in Leopardstown. Like there is bits of holes you can pick, and I thought what Gaelic Warrior did in Leopardstown, or in Limerick, at Christmas was phenomenal. Yeah. And if he shows up, I think he could take a lot of beating in this. I know people were saying he was jumping wasn't spectacular in his first start, but it was very good in Limerick. And if he does that, I think there's going to be a shock result. Well, not a shock result, but I think he could overturn the favourite if he shows up.
What do you think?
I think it's a really good race. I'd be kind of inclined to agree with Brian. Around 4-7 is a bit short. He was foot perfect. Like you couldn't have wished for a better chasing debut. Like he was brilliant. Making the running probably wouldn't have suited him either. He'd much prefer to have a lead, which is what he'll get if Gaelic Warrior runs.
They knew he was going to have a really hard test on his next start, so I think that's why they jumped out to make the running and test his jumping, because he was going. Barry Conlon and Michael O'Sullivan knew he's going straight into Grade 1, so they probably did want to put a test to it, and I suppose Leopardstown is the biggest test you can get as well.
Yeah, and some of these can make huge inroads. Like if you've only got to look back at the market from last year, like El Fabiolo was 9-2, like third favourite most of the week for this. So horses can improve massively from going over hurdles to fences. Here, Founder 50 would be one that's done that. But yeah, Gaelic Warrior, it's worth remembering that he has won at Leopardstown at this meeting. Yes, it was a 3 mile handicap hurdle, but it's going to be a really good race. We obviously spoke around. You could easily put kind of 4 Willie Mullins short price favourites in an accumulator, but there are reasons to believe that a few of them could get turned over. But Gaelic Warrior would be. I mean, what price is he at the minute?
He's 11-4 with Bet365.
He won't go off that price if he's declared.
Okay. Fascinating. And the beauty of it, this race in particular, a lot of the races over the weekend and recent times, you look at these big races in Ireland, it's a bit thin in terms of you've got one very short price horse, yes, but then the opposition is a bit weak in comparison. Hopefully it holds up and Gaelic Warrior and 1 or 2 others line up against Marine Nationale so we can get a better gauge as to his claims for the Arkle.
Yeah, I think come Monday after the whole thing and you go dissect it all, we'll have a lot clearer picture of what is going to go where for Cheltenham in March. And last year a lot of the favourites did get turned over as well. I think, Paul didn't have a fantastic, he picked the wrong one a few times, so they all can't win. Yeah. But the form he's in at the minute with his strike rate to winners, it's hard to go against him.
Was it 15 from 21 or something? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you can see why he was so confident yesterday in the maiden hurdle. Like he didn't take him off the bridle till he got over the last. But no, it's a very exciting weekend. What
about the Irish Gold Cup? Okay, Galopin de Champ 5-2 on, Fast or Slow 5-2, Conflated 10-1, and then 25-1 or bigger the remaining quartet who are still involved in the race. I mean, Galopin de Champ is just the standout staying chaser, isn't he? By a fair distance, particularly judged on his most recent performance.
Yeah, I haven't seen a performance like that in Leopardstown since I can't remember when. Like to quicken off a strong run pace over 3 miles and win the way he did. Like I knew when they lined up down the start, I knew there was going to be something different. Paul lined them up as if no more messing around here, we're going to go. And I could just see there was a different horse that day. And it just shows the team they have down there, they were very confident. And Willie wasn't going to run him unless he knew that there was something there. And now I don't know if he will or will not run the weekend, but I think he has improved. He's put them 2 runs from Punchestown behind him. I'd never read into the race in Punchestown to John Durkin. I thought it was silly the way they rode him over 2.5 miles. He's a 3 mile 2 winner. He's a Gold Cup winner, you know, so that didn't really bother me. But it will be interesting to see if both of them show up, because it's the clash everyone is probably going to want to see all weekend.
Just before I get Steve's point of view on this, I just want to ask you about that meeting where he won last time out. So Paul Townend took a couple of rides out wide. I think Grange Clare West also came round the houses and kept a wide run. Just so that we are clear, and I'm asking you from your point of view, whether or not there was any bias in the way he was ridden, and where some horses who stayed down towards the inside of the track, they got beaten more, so far, than you thought they would do in terms of class. So was there any exaggeration at all in, say, a performance like Galopin, or maybe even Grange Clare West, who we'll talk about later?
I wouldn't say an exaggeration, but it does. As a jockey, I used like favouring the outside when the ground was getting turned up. It's literally out by the Ambulance Road. Your next stop is the M50 as such, or Fox Rock, so you can't get any. It's the driest part of the track, so you're always going to. I was surprised to see how many lined up towards the inside. You know, there's racing there from, it was the 3rd day, so like it's all turned up. So, but it's, I don't think it mattered where Paul went in this horse that day. He was going to win and win the way he did either way. So, but yes, there is an advantage. It is a bit drier out there, and I have been noticed to take that turn around the odd time as well.
Okay, well, it's just something to bear in mind when we look back at that form. And I thought about it at the time, and good to have you on board to ask you something like that. Not many others that we can get on to talk about that. What's your view on if Galopin and Fast So Slow line up?
We were both of the same opinion, kind of on a Christmas preview, that he's just a better horse at Leopardstown. Like he's 4 from 4 over fences there now. That would be the big thing against Fast or Slow. Fast or Slow, you could imagine he'd beat Fast or Slow easily in this, and then Fast or Slow would get a lot closer at Cheltenham, where he's obviously got good Cheltenham Festival form. But I think Leopardstown's just Galopin's track. I think he's just absolutely deadly there.
And in contrast, it's not Fast or Slow's track, who's had a pretty terrible record at Leopardstown.
And a few of those will be when looking after a mark. But, and there's even talk that he might go for the 2 mile
I
race.
think ground conditions going to be, like when I left yesterday evening to fly over here, the heavens hadn't stopped opening for about 24 hours. So me know Martin Brazel, if there's heavy in that description, he won't be declared. I don't think he will. I think he'll be declared for the 2 mile. I can't see him giving him a hard race over 3 miles. I met him in Tramore, and he did say that to me at Tramore New Year's Day. So I think it will be worth keeping an eye on what the weather is going to be like for the next few days, and if it continues to rain, there could be only one of them might show up.
Okay. Well, I'm going to use you and your contacts to help us preview the next race, which is the 2 mile 5 novice chase, which starts off proceedings, or one of the earlier races on the card on Sunday. Willie Mullins has Fact or File, Grange Clare West, Gaelic Warrior, Facile Vega, all potentially lined up. And I know we've spoken about Gaelic Warrior and Facile Vega. I mean, is it going to be Fact or File and Grange Clare West? And what's the rumour? What's the inside track?
I spoke to a good friend of mine yesterday, and we were trying to figure out, like, last year everyone didn't think he was going to run all 3 novice 2 miles, like El Fabiolo. Appreciated. They all took each other on. Yeah. And they did. So again, it's like kind of when everyone tries to read Willie's mind, he does the complete opposite. But I won't be shocked if all 3, maybe. I can't see Facile Vega showing up. He hasn't got home over 2 mile in his last few starts, so I think he will stick to 2 mile. But if you put my neck on the line now, I would say Fact or File, Grange Clare West will show up, and Gaelic Warrior will go somewhere else. I was very impressed with Fact or File. I thought he looked a proper horse, and you can see why they wanted to go chasing, because the more he got jumping, the better and better he was getting. And Grange Clare West, I wanted to fancy him at Christmas, but my heart was saying I can't. I fancied him last year in the Lawlers, and he flopped, and he did that one too many times last year, so I was wanting to wait, but he didn't. He put in a spectacular performance, and I was equally impressed with his jumping. So it will be a very exciting race, and there'll be no guessing on jockey bookings here if the front 2 show up, because Mark Walsh will obviously ride Fact or File, and Paul will ride Grange Clare West. But it will be a very good race, and obviously Culver's Cross is in it as well, but he'll probably go elsewhere over the weekend. So
for his own safety.
For his own safety, yeah. But again, it looks a two-horse race when you're trying to find something else at a bit of value as such. Embassy Gardens won't show up, but so it's from a betting perspective, it's not going to be massive, I suppose.
Similar sentiments?
I was surprised they had Factor Foul favourite over Grange-Clare West, if I'm honest. I thought he was kind of flattered by the 17-length win over Zanahiyr. I didn't thought that kind of amounted to much form-wise. I thought Grange-Clare West was brilliant last time. He obviously hasn't been the easiest to train, but he's now kind of put 3 back-to-back performances together. So we could have really turned a corner, really. He beat, Corbett's Cross and Florin Porter easily in that Neville Hotels race. Florin Porter was obviously then going back left-handed. That would have suited him. Corbett's Cross had already had good form with 3-car Brag and Monty Star. Like, that was a serious performance, and yeah, I'd definitely have him favourite for this race.
All right. There's a very good, potentially, clash in the Tattersaw Ireland 50th Derby Sale Novice Hurdle. Ballyburn, who beat Cletus Poulor, who won, it was just yesterday.
Won
the day before
Sunday,
yesterday, sorry, potentially up against Farron Glory, who I think would have probably bolted up at Aintree. We never...
Could be one of these forgotten horses who people are forgetting to...
Yeah, and nothing apart from Tell Her the Name has run from that Aintree race to really gauge it. But at the time, everyone was going, oh, this is a very hot race and whoever wins is going to be serious. How do you see it?
I thought Ballyburn was short. I think he's around even money for this. He obviously lost his unbeaten record being beaten by Firefox, who's obviously a really good horse, and then won over 2.5 miles last time. I'm not sure that performance justifies him being even money for this. I thought Farron Glory was the obvious each way alternative, to be honest. Won at Clonmel by 9.5 lengths, then beat King of Kingsfield in the Royal Bond. I know at the time everyone was questioning the form, but King of Kingsfield then went out and beat Mirza West, who then came out to win by 11 lengths on his next start. So that form is stacking up well. He would have definitely won at Aintree if he hadn't fallen at the second last. He's had a bit of time off. The only thing with it, obviously, interviews with Jack Kennedy, he seems to be intent on riding Firefox in the Supreme by all accounts. So would that question how high a class Farron Glory is, or is it just the fact that he's fallen in love with Firefox? Does that happen as a jockey?
You do, and I suppose Jack does have the choice of them, but Farron Glory isn't doing anything wrong. But I suppose at the start of the season, if you were to... when they were going through their novice hurdlers, was he going to be one that they were going to put at the top of the level? So you'd say no. So maybe that's why they still have him in the pecking order until he really does and goes and proves it. I did like Ballyburn. I forgive him for getting beat the first day. Like the vibes, a lot of Willies were taking a run at the start of the season, and he was clearly one that did that. And Jack gave Firefox a very good ride of Varios. He knew Willies were taking a run, and he used his fitness to an advantage as such. So I can see Paul bucking out here and letting this horse bowl, and if he jumps and goes a gallop, I cannot see much getting near him, to be honest. If he does what he did in Leopardstown, I can see something similar very happening again. No flies on him is interesting for Edward O'Grady. He was very impressive in Leopardstown in his maiden hurdle, and the form of that is actually working out a bit better as well. So it's a shame there's no Caldwell Potter as such, because it had the prospects of a very exciting race.
He's going under the hammer.
Yes, the following Monday afternoon, which will be very interesting to see what happens.
What sort of money do you think he'll make, Caldwell Potter, just staring off the tangent?
Oh, I'd say, sure,
as a man in the sales ring.
He's going to make, he has to make $500,000 plus, plus, so it'll be interesting to see if anyone this side of the water comes over and has a go at him.
Have you got any potential buyers lined up?
Make a few phone calls and see. I might head in around Mayfair there somewhere and see if I can see anyone. There might be
brilliant.
outside a few offices.
With one of those signs saying, "Do you want to buy Caldwell Potter?
Do you want to buy a Cheltenham Festival winner?" No, but it will be interesting. I'm going to go there myself and see, but it's obviously not. I'm sure Gordon has plenty of owners lined up for him he won't be giving them away, that's for sure.
Okay, couple more races to look at the Dublin Festival. The Dublin Chase, El Fabiolo, full stop.
I think this is an interesting race. I've touched on Fernie Hollow, I won't go through that again. He's obviously got an entry in this. Then you've got Gentleman Demi, obviously then upset Blue Lord, who was 1-4 for this last year. He's then got to reverse form with Dino Blue, who I thought was impressive over Christmas. There's obviously talks of her going to the Mayor's Chase. That seems fairly set in stone. But if she was to give him a race, obviously with Jonbon's frailties at the weekend, like you wouldn't be surprised at a bit of a switcheroo there. But I'd never be the one to put El Fabiolo in at a short price in accumulators and things like that, just because of those jumping frailties that Bryan touched on earlier. He's got a serious engine, but one day he will have one mistake too many.
And Leopardstown is a tough jumping track. He last year he made a very bad mistake.
He tried to take
Jacob.
Correct.
Tried to bring her with him. So I thought, like in his season reappearance, like that was nearly the worst he's ever jumped. So he just won't want to do it. And again, like he is too, like, to put him in accumulators and everything, he is very short for that. I thought Gentle to Me was quite interesting. He ran very well on his first appearance. And his form shows the drier the ground, the better he is. So if we did happen to get a dry 3 days and Leopardstown dried out, I could see him reversing the places with Dino Blue a little bit, I think.
All right. El Fabiolo's 4-9 favourite. Dino Blue, 11-4. Gentleman to Me is 5s. Captain Guinness 7s. One day Appreciate is going to win a good race. I'm not sure when it will be.
I fancied him last time against Allaho, and
I just don't.
Never go.
I'd like to see Appreciated ping out over 2 miles over fences.
Well, like he did in the John Durkan. I thought the ride that they gave him in the John Durkan was brilliant.
Like he jumps fantastic and use that to an advantage.
Correct.
Like he mightn't be the strongest of finishers, but like if I was on a good jumper and a horse like him, I'd love to book out and go and catch me if you can. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But
I'd love to see that.
They've tried everything else with him now, so
exactly,
why not give it a go and see?
One day it'll happen. Come on, Appreciate it. Not lost on that. Finally, the race we're going to talk about from the Dublin Racing Festival is the Irish Champion Hurdle. Stateman's 3-1 on, Impero Pass 7-2, Bob Bollinger 6-1, Echoes in Rain 12s, blah blah blah. How do you see this? Is it straightforward for Stateman?
I think Imperial Pass will get closer if riding tactics come into if they ride him a little bit different than they did at Christmas. Not being critical, I was very surprised to see them drop him in and follow Stateman. He won over 2 mile 5 in Cheltenham. Like, why ride him for pace when you know he's a stayer?
Yeah.
Stateman got to run the race. He quickened up like he always does, and everything's so simple with Stateman. He jumps out. Paul keeps it simple on him. He jumps, he travels, and he wins. Whereas I wouldn't mind seeing his stamina put to a real test and seeing if he had what's there behind the locker. And I knew if I was riding Imperial Pass now, I'd be jumping out and going, letting them ride my race as such. And if they do that, I could see them getting a lot closer. Maybe Stateman will still find more, but I'd like to see his stamina tested around Leopardstown in a proper run 2 miles. So I think it'll be interesting to see what way they ride Imperial Pass.
How do you see it?
I thought exactly that. So I could understand what they did last time because of how keen he was in the Hatton's Grace. So he didn't really settle when he jumped off, kind of with plenty of space in front of him that day. But yeah, it didn't work last time, so you try something different, don't you? Yeah, so I imagine him to line up ahead of Stateman in this. I think the top 4 are all going to run. Bob Bollinger and Echoes in Rain. I wouldn't be with Bob Bollinger. I know he's 2 from 2 this year, but they were both on heavy ground over 2.5 miles. Like, this will be if you have Darryl Jacob and Paul Townend properly going for it on Stateman and Imperial Pass, that I imagine they will with 2 different owners. I think they'll be lengths.
I'd make the run on him.
Well,
so would I.
I'm actually not completely dismissing Bob Bollinger. I mean, you heard Bryan suggesting that there's a lot of rain in the area. I'm hoping that it is heavy ground and they run Bob Bollinger. And the first run back, I thought, okay, not bad.
Yeah.
He's beaten Zanna here. Okay, Zanna here. But the second run back, so when he went to Cheltenham, I remember chatting to Robbie Bauer after the race. I mean, they've done a lot of work with this horse in getting him to settle, but also getting him to do his confidence back. It obviously had gone completely.
Yeah, I'd say there was an issue he maybe had a little niggling issue behind, because his head carriage a lot was always up towards the side and he was hanging, but he's still doing it to me a bit. But he's racing through that now. Yeah. So I don't know.
If it was fast ground, I wouldn't be interested in him.
Yeah, just because the ground was heavy.
But if the ground's heavy over 2 miles, I mean, he on official ratings he beat Marie's Rock. I mean, and he thumped Marie's Rock at Cheltenham. I quite liked Marie's Rock that day, but there was only ever going to be one winner, and he gave her £7 and beat her 7 lengths. And she's low 150s, isn't she? I think she was 150 on the weekend, but that puts him into the low 160s. a run like that. He's 6-1 for the race. State Man's 1-3, and there's about £3 or £4 between them. I think in reality, in the difference between their ratings, and one horse is consistent, and we know how good he is because he just comes out and does his business all the time. And the other one, there's a question mark still as to exactly what is still in the locker. I'd rather take a little tickle on Bob Ollinger.
I'm just looking to see what his Irish rating is compared to Irish.
Well, I'm using Marie's Rock as
a
the
gauge.
gauge.
Just like he's got £9 or £9 to find on Irish ratings.
Yeah, I don't think it's that much between the two of them on actual reality.
I have a bee in my bonnet over the English ratings and Irish ratings a little bit at times.
I'm sure you're not the only one. I think there are a few of us who think.
I'm sticking to my.
All right. Well, I'm going to give him a roll against State Man on the weekend. Okay, so that's a look at Ireland. You can mention any more races in Ireland, but there's also good racing at Musselburgh. There's Bet365 sponsored racing at Musselburgh. There's a very good card at Sandown. I think there might be a couple of winners. I'm hoping anyway. Steve, do you want to kick us off with anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, we'll mention the City Isles because that's a really good race this year, and it's been a good pointer towards the Cheltenham Festival. Defi Desoy won this before what was called the JLT, now the Turners. Lompress won this before the Brown Advisory, and then Jerry Colon won it last year before finishing second in the Brown Advisory. And it looks a really strong field. Corbett's Cross has ran well on his 3 starts over fences. I probably wouldn't have him favourite over Hermes Hélène though. I know we had a chat before. I really liked Hermes Hélène on his debut at Newbury, beating Nickelback, and then I thought he ran a career best, finishing second behind Ile Francais at Kempton last time. This drop back in trip won't inconvenience him at all. You got Jello, who obviously was unlucky, hampered when he fell last time. Completely wasn't his fault. And then you've got Le Patron, Colonel Harry, and Trelawney, who all kind of have collateral form with each other.
Yeah.
I thought Hermes Hélène was probably the most likely winner. I wouldn't rule out Nickelback. I've been a big fan of his. And listening to Sarah Humphrey, she was unsure of whether the drop to 2 miles would suit him because he wouldn't be able to dominate. Yeah. And she got it spot on, to be fair. I think going back up in trip, he'll get an easier lead because nothing will want to take him on at the pace. And he'll be some sight over those railway fences. He
will be. Which horse would you ride, first of all? Which horse do you think will give you most of the thrill?
Hermes Hélène.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd stick with him. Like, I think his run in Kempton at Christmas was exceptionally good, and the times and everything is showing that he just happened to run in possibly to what we could see as one of the best horses in between Ireland, England and France at the minute. And it's a shame he probably doesn't look like he will be coming over to Ile France to Cheltenham, but I think Hermes Hélène jumps exceptionally well, and his jumping in Kempton alone was fantastic, and I think Sandown is tailor-made from those railway fences, and I can see Harry Cobden bucking him out, being very positive and using his stamina, and I think he's going to take a lot of beating, to be honest with you.
I thought 11-4 was quite fair. 15-8 Corbett's Cross, 11-4 Hermes Hélène, 9-2 Jello, Le Patron 5s, Colonel Harry, another one I'd be interested in, but I think Hermes Hélène has the class edge. Anything else you want to pick up from Sandown, or is anything at Musselburgh that you want to?
Ed Keeper runs in that valuable 3-mile handicap hurdle on the card, I think 3:10. He's looked really progressive this season. Probably should have won last time at Cheltenham. Made a bad mistake at the last. I don't like horses that have been given big rises for not winning though. He's been given £5 rise for that, which I thought was a bit harsh. I think he's around 11-2. He had plenty of fans at that price. I thought he'd definitely run his race, but that £5 rise I thought was a bit harsh. I'll probably get questioned. I napped Mon Morale in the paper on Saturday for a novice handicap chase over 3 miles, but he was a non-runner on account of the ground. He's entered in over 2.5 miles against Giovinco, but we kind of found out last time in the December Gold Cup that he needs 3 miles now, so I'd be against him in this race. Giovinco's interesting back down in trip, obviously after his run at Kempton. At Musselburgh, Magma Sam bids for back-to-back Bet365 Edinburgh Nationals. He won the race by 4 1/4 lengths last year off a mark of 120. Runs in it off only £4 higher this year. He ran there on his reappearance over an inadequate trip of under 3 miles. It was purely just a pipe opener. I expect to see a much better showing on Saturday. I think he's 7-1 with Bet365 at the time of recording. And then just a couple of entries to note with regards to the Cheltenham Festival. At Musselburgh on Sunday, both Manella Crooner and Absolute Notions have been entered for the Pertemps qualifier. Yeah. So that's quite interesting to see the mark given for that and whether they finish in the top 4.
Crooner ran well in Tremor on New Year's Day. I thought he ran on very well at the line. He kind of came from a good bit back, and it's interesting they're going back over hurdles.
Yeah.
So
probably not to back to win for that race, but yeah, a nice 3rd or 4th place finish will put them on the boat to Cheltenham.
Anything else, or
I'll save my other one ready for my best bet.
later? Okay. I will not mention anything about it then. Brian, what about you? What else would you like to mention?
I just thought out of the Irish, that maybe the handicaps of such the 2 mile, the Liffey handicap hurdle. I thought Zenta was very interesting off a mark of 1:39. Like, she's only 5 or 6 lengths behind Lossiemouth in the Triumph hurdle. Yeah. She then went and won an Aintree, and they started her off over fences in Cork at the start of the year, but it didn't really work out for her. She's now got an entry in this race. JP has a great result of winning this handicap. He's won a couple of times with Charles Burns, and I just thought off 1:39 she could technically have a nice mark, and she's got to wait 11.5, so she was worth noting.
Okay. I have just one that I'm going to mention. I don't know if he's definitely going to run, but I'm still going to keep an eye on Petit Tonnerre. He's currently entered in the Bet365 Scottish Champion Chase at Musselburgh. I'm not sure if he's going to run in that. But I'm just going to keep watching him, because at some point Petit Tonnerre is going to do what we all think he's going to. It's not. I mean, we've all seen what's been going on. He's been running in races he can't win. What's his handicap?
And you keep backing him for him.
Well, no, I'm holding tight. I'm waiting. I don't want to miss when, you know what's the saying? You go to all the funerals and you miss the wedding. Well, I've been there. I don't want to do it again. So I'll be just keeping an eye to see what else is declared, etc. in the race. I'm also keen on Ed Keeper. I know he's gone up £5 for that spot behind Butch at Cheltenham, but I thought he would have bolted up. He was travelling so well, and the setback, the momentum he lost, and the distance of ground, and I think he was clawing it back at the end. I think he's a terrific horse for the future. So still keen on him. And the other one I'll wait, because I think Steve's going to mention it. But that has been our overall preview of what's to come over the next week or so. But the best bets still on their way. Now, before we get into our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It's available every weekend with prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. T's and C's apply. Now it's time for Steve and Brian's best selections of what's to come. So, Brian, as our guest, you can go first.
I'm going to go with the first race on Saturday, the 2 mile 5 novice hurdle, and it's going to be Loughlin. Just something a bit different. I just think he's coming in under the radar as one of Willie's top novices, but I've followed him since he's won his maiden hurdle this year, and I think the engine is clearly there. He was 9th in the Champion Bumper, which, like, there's been now 17 winners come out of that Champion Bumper, and the stamina he showed in Limerick at Christmas, that's a tough race to win. Fahim won it many years ago, and I think I won't be surprised to see Paul Townend down on him and at declaration time. I'm just going to question mark Predator's Gold stamina, stepping him up in trip. Now, maybe I'll get it wrong, but to me he didn't stay in Leopardstown at Christmas over 2 mile on heavy ground, so unless they ride him different. So I'm going to stick with him and hopefully gets off the weekend to a good start. Loughlin.
Loughlin for you. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, so mine comes Sandown on Saturday. You mentioned him at the time, a classic anthem. Won at Sandown over 2 miles off a mark of 114. Runs over 2.5 miles on Saturday, the 125. He was beaten last time at Plumpton, but I think if Robbie Dunn has that ride again, they're definitely win.
Remember it now.
Brutal.
Yeah, went down by a neck, was a bit overconfident. He's only £1 higher in this race. The return to Sandown will definitely suit, as will, the trip of 2.5 miles. I think he's got a really good chance.
He's on my list. So, yes. But basically, if it's Sandown and Classic Anthem's running, he's going to make my list. So, case closed. Well, best of luck to both of you on those. I've got them both down. Loughlin in Ireland on Saturday. And Classic Anthem also on Saturday at Sandown. Thank you both very much. That's been very entertaining. I know we've actually probably gone longer than we have done normally, but it's been such rich stuff particularly from you, Bryan, obviously, as usual. I know that Steve's pretty good anyway, but it's lovely to have you on board. Hopefully it won't be the last time. Hopefully we'll see more of you.
Love being here. Definitely worth the trip over, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Excellent. Well, thank you both very much. Thank you for watching as well. That has been this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thanks to Steve and Bryan, and to you for watching. As always, if you like what you've heard or watched in this or any of our previous episodes, then leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. Next week, we'll be back as almost usual. Steve Mellish will be joining us to talk about the Denman Chase meeting and all the good racing associated with that Newbury fixture. But until then, from the Racing Weekly team, bye-bye.